Wow, I'm excited about today's program. We're interviewing Dr. Todd Bolen about his list of top 10 archaeological discoveries of 2020. You won't want to miss it. Shalom and a very warm welcome to each of you. I'll tell you, I'm really excited about this program that we're sharing today because I had the chance to interview Dr. Todd Bolen. He is a current professor at the Master's College in California. He has extensive experience in Jerusalem, not only as a student, but as a professor there as well. And he really is one of these go-to guys when you have a question about archaeology or history or geography. It's Dr. Bolen who is a great resource for all of us. So in this interview, in this interaction with Dr. Bolen, what we will be sharing is his top 10 archaeological discovery list of 2020. Now, probably for maybe 8 or 9 years or so, Dr. Bolen has put together this top 10 list. And of course, this directly connects us to the Bible in really exciting ways. So I'm so glad to have had the chance to interview him in this teaching, and that's what we're going to share over the next 30 minutes, actually. Pictures of these top 10 discoveries, and with Dr. Bolen giving his personal explanation of these discoveries as well. So let me say this before we launch into our teaching, and it's this, because if you are interested in any kind of picture from biblical lands, you will want to visit this site, BiblePlaces.com. BiblePlaces.com. I think Dr. Bolen is up to about 20 volumes that he calls the Pictorial Library of Biblical Lands. These are high quality pictures, photos from various biblical lands. And I think if you're looking for a collection or a set specifically from these areas where the Bible, of course, took place, you will want to visit BiblePlaces.com. I'll just put that plug in for him because I think it's, again, the best resource for pictures from the land of Israel and these other lands from Bible times. So with that, again, thanks for joining us. If you're a subscriber to this channel, certainly we are thankful for that. And if you want to hit that red bell, as you know, the drill, that will keep you notified of further and future posts and teachings that we offer. So with that, let's get started and launch right into our interview with Dr. Todd Bolen. Well, shalom to everyone. And we are in for a treat tonight because as we, in our ministry, always try to connect the Bible with some kind of cultural or contextual theme with what's going on, what has gone on in the days of the Bible. We're going to talk about archaeology and with Dr. Todd Bolen tonight. So I think we're in for a treat because Todd has great experience in living in Jerusalem, attending school there, teaching there, and now he is a professor at Master's College in California. So welcome, Todd. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. It's good to be with you.
Well, we are going to proceed with sharing my screen, and Todd, I've invited to basically comment on the list of the top 10 archaeological finds of 2020. Now, before I do that, Todd, I know you have a certain standard criteria, if you will, as you compile these top 10 each year. By the way, how many years have you been compiling this list for us?
Maybe 8 or 9 years, perhaps.
8 or 9 years. Wow. And I bet that task is pretty difficult because to discern which is top and which is out of the top 10, because I think every archaeological find is significant because it again confirms the historicity of the Bible. But we're going to take a look at this list that you compiled. What is the criteria that you have used for these lists, by the way?
So it's pretty subjective. I mean, it's really at the end of it, it's what I like and what gets my attention, which may be of interest to people more broadly because I'm a Bible professor, but I taught for
Yeah.
many years different courses in archaeology in Israel. So yeah, I'm looking for things that are more closely related to Israel. Not all of these finds are. I'm looking for things more closely related to the Bible.
Well, that's what this list will do for us. So let me begin by sharing my screen, and we'll start with this. So again, thanks so much for joining us. And I actually started with this particular uh, picture that was the top archaeological discovery of 2019. So I didn't want to give away your number one quite yet, but again, your lists each year have been really beneficial for all of us Bible students and teachers. And again, we thank you for joining us. So let's start with number 10. And of course, we'll count down as well. This looks to be like in Jerusalem at the Western Wall, a subterranean complex that was chiseled out of the bedrock. What can you say about this one, Todd?
Well, this is interesting because it's unique. One, the location just gets us because it is close to this famous place that's been so treasured by Jewish people for so many centuries, and near people who've been there know the area of the large public bathrooms. Actually, it's underneath that where
Hmm.
they found a building, and underneath an ancient building, and then underneath the ancient building they found what you're seeing here, which are a series of three rooms that were carved out by hand. They don't know what it was used for. They found niches, they found um, shelves, maybe something was used for storage. They're not really sure. Maybe this was part of a larger building, but it's somebody went to a lot of time and work in prime real estate. I mean, so close to the temple to have this subterranean structure.
And what does this date to, Todd? Here's another
It,
angle of what was discovered.
it's from the first century, so it's before the temple was destroyed in the year
Mhm.
70.
Okay. Wow. I think I have a third slide on this number 10. This gal looks like she found something interesting.
Yeah, I'm seeing some oil lamps and some
Hmm.
fragments of oil lamps there. They also found, I know, a stone mug and some other cooking vessels.
That's great. Well, 2,000 years old, right so close to the Western Wall. It deserves a good top 10 here. So now we head out of Israel to something that links us to a guy named Sargon II. And if you remember your history, those of you who are watching and are engaging in this video, Sargon II was instrumental in bringing down the northern kingdom in 722 BC. So, what are we looking at here, Todd?
So this is a new discovery they found. This is northern Iraq,
Hmm.
which is the area of ancient Assyria. Sargon was really a great Assyrian ruler by the standards of the day, and he had carved in a water channel a relief. Actually, there's a series of these rock reliefs that they found from the late 8th century, so like 720 to 700 BC.
Hmm.
They're some of them are quite large, and they have depictions of Sargon himself, as well as some depictions of the Assyrian gods. So, like the main god of Assyria is Ashur. So here you can see these gods are standing on the backs of these animals. There's also the sun god, the moon god that is depicted here, the god of wisdom, they believe, and then on the either end, that's the king himself. So that's Sargon. We call him Sargon II to distinguish him from the guy, the Sargon who lived some centuries earlier.
Wow. So standing on the backs of animals.
Yeah,
Quite.
and that actually there's an interesting potential connection there because the Jeroboam, who built the high places at Dan and
Hmm.
Bethel and
Hmm.
set up the golden calves, there's a theory, it's hard to prove this, but it's really possible that the idea there was that the Israelite God was standing on top of the golden calf. And so it wasn't necessarily you're worshiping the calf as much as you're worshiping, God on top of the calf, because as we see in ancient depictions like these here, this was well known feature in religious iconography.
Wow. So now we head to Egypt. So we're again out of the land of Israel, though we'll return to it, of course. These sarcophagi, wow, 100 of them found at Saqqara. This is an incredible discovery, probably took them by surprise. What do you think?
It did. They found so many of them, and they'd found some before. They believe they found even some since this discovery was announced. And so this would kind of, when you asked about my criteria, this is not directly connected to the Bible,
Hmm.
and it's not in the land of Israel either. But as you can see from these pictures here, it's just such a stunning discovery. It's from the period, the biblical period, Persian period, we'd say, like time of Ezra and Nehemiah, and then on into the intertestamental years when these date to, and they belong to officials that were leading Egypt in the late period and the Ptolemaic era. So,
Hmm.
like I said, from the maybe say 500 BC on till around the time of Christ.
So they date to a much later time period than that step pyramid that you can see in the background that was really the earliest, if I recall, the earliest pyramid in Egypt, correct?
That's right. But Saqqara here served as this necropolis, this ancient
Hmm.
cemetery for Memphis for millennia. And so yeah, we
Right.
have discoveries that have been made here from all these different periods.
And here's one more, I think.
Yeah,
Wow. Just to be a part of this excavation and to find these mummified cases, if you will, of so many of these sarcophagi. So, what an outstanding and no doubt surprising discovery. So, but now we come back to Israel and the Shphelah. The Shphelah is the lowlands of Judah. Uh, city of Lachish is about 30 miles south and west of Jerusalem. Here is a great aerial of what was found and defined as a Canaanite temple.
when you think of Lachish, you're usually thinking about the Israelites and, of course, the famous attack by Sennacherib's
Hmm.
army in 701 BC. Later, even the Babylonians. There's something important there. But this is pushing it back centuries earlier to about 1200 BC or so, which would be the biblical time of the judges. And so when we think about the Canaanite practices that were ongoing in the land uh, in the time of the judges, when they kept being led away from worship of the true God, this is providing understanding of that. It's not the first Canaanite temple that's been found in Israel or even at Lachish, but it's significant, and this is the big discovery of the year. They they observed that the layout of the temple is similar to other Canaanite temples, like they found at Shechem and Megiddo, Hatzor. They found some uh, cultic items here. They found some jewelry, some daggers, axe heads, some scarabs, Egyptian scarabs, including a bottle also that has the name of Ramses II.
Wow.
Uh, one of the potsherds has a letter, one of the ancient Canaanite letters, the letter Samic. So that's another addition to our understanding of ancient writing.
So I'll go back to this slide. Is this a Canaanite form of Baal or a storm god? What is this figurine?
Yeah, it certainly looks like others that we found. That this one's not as well preserved as some of those that
Hmm.
you can see in the museum. But yeah, he's got his raised arm like he's holding a lightning bolt. Of
Yeah.
course, Baal is the god of the storm, and we have a number of depictions. And the Israelites were, they struggled. They living in the land where they depended upon the rain. It was very tempting to worship a god that claimed to be able to bring rain.
And look at this huge cauldron that was found, I believe, in the temple. Amazing discovery.
Yes,
Wow.
that's beautiful.
So this temple was destroyed apparently in the 12th century. So I guess that begs the question, who did this? And that, of course, leads us probably to a discussion on the whether we have an earlier or later date for the conquest, correct?
Yeah, or yeah,
Or
within the
the
time of the
Philistines.
judges, I mean, everybody would agree too. There's a lot of fighting going on. You have
Yeah.
Philistines coming in to
Hmm.
the coastal plain right next door to Lachish at the same time. So yeah, and then you got the Egyptians, and they're, of course, they love to come up and knock down cities and stuff. So there's a lot of candidates.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this number six has just one slide here. And of course, seal impressions have been found. One a few years ago with Hezekiah's name, another one with Isaiah the prophet, most likely. But this one was a seal impression of King Jeroboam II. This is remarkable. What can we learn about this, Todd?
So this might maybe doesn't look like much, or like why would this make the top 10 list or whatever, but there's
Mhm.
two things in particular. Number one is you have this beautiful lion, and that's to have something that well portrayed, and if it doesn't look as um, maybe as attractive, we know more about this because 100 years ago, they found a seal
Mhm.
that matches this. Now, sadly, it was lost. It was discovered at Megiddo and somehow got lost along the way. But this is a copy. Actually, it's a smaller size version. The other thing that makes this really fascinating is it's from an official of King Jeroboam. It's probably Jeroboam the second. He was the longest reigning king in the northern kingdom, so
Mhm.
around 793 to 753. And we don't have, we have lots of seal impressions. You just mentioned some from kings of Judah, but not from the northern kingdom. And another thing about this too, this particular seal impression was not found in an excavation. It was purchased in an antiquities market, and so we don't know where it originally came from. But the guy paid just like less than $1 or something to get it, and they
Wow.
studied it for 5 years in order to determine that it was authentic.
Well, that's the big question. Is this a forgery or the real thing? But certainly the latter in this case. So they also found, I believe, a seal impression, or at least an inscription of the Shema, the servant of Jeroboam, in the grain silo at Megiddo. Did they not? About the same time?
They
Uh,
found it at Megiddo. I don't recall the exact location,
yeah.
but yeah, it was they found 1904, and that was the Shema, the servant of Jeroboam, and that's the original. And that this is a so there must have been multiple seals, obviously,
Hmm.
because this is a smaller size.
Wow.
And
So
when it says
how big is this one? You think about the size of a nickel, maybe?
yeah, this one is quite small. It's less than an inch. I think it's
Wow.
about 3/4 of an inch
Yeah.
wide. So
Well, a great discovery. So that brings us to number five. And we're near Fula in the Jezreel Valley, of course, right next door to Megiddo here. Fula is the modern city just to the east of Megiddo. So, what are we looking at here, Todd?
we're looking at a large administrative building. The archaeologists didn't want to quite call it a palace, but it's a big, impressive building from the time of the kings of Israel in the days of Ahab. Maybe
Okay.
a little bit earlier than Ahab, a little bit after, but it was some kind of administrative center. And as you mentioned here, it's in the Jezreel Valley. So that's where there's a lot of agriculture,
Hmm.
maybe the royal estates where they're bringing in the harvest, the grain, crops, maybe collecting taxes, or I mean, we can have different theories or whatever, but it's according to the words of the archaeologists, there's the best preserved building from the time of Omri, and there's some good candidates to go along with that because we have the House of Ahab's also building in Samaria. They're building in Megiddo and nearby Jezreel. But this is something that was off the map. We don't even know its ancient name. Horvat Tevat is the modern name, but what it was called in biblical times, we don't know.
Yeah, that was my question. A lot of these sites, you can connect it to some kind of biblical city, but this one seems to be unknown at this point. So, wow. I wonder if this site is you're able to visit at all. I'd love to go see this archaeological site sometime in the near future.
Well, yeah, if you're going to do it, you got to go fast because they're probably not going to preserve it. It was a salvage dig. They're
Mm,
building something else. I believe a road was going in here. So
okay.
it's probably not going to be preserved or open to tourists.
Okay, that brings us to number 4. And here we are near Jerusalem, just to the west of Jerusalem. And this is again an overview of some ruins that date from again the divided kingdom from 900 to 600 BC. What are we looking at here?
We're looking at what the archaeologists are calling a temple, or the
Temple,
Bible might call it a high
high
place.
place.
Um, it's clearly religious because they found cult stands. They found the figurines, like you can see here,
Wow.
a refuse pit where they would discard religious cultic items. They found an altar out in the courtyard, and it seems to be, as you can see from the dates here, in use for several centuries. So that raises the question then of, was this allowed by the kings in Jerusalem? Moza, where this was found, should note is only about 3 to 4 miles away from Jerusalem. So it's quite close. It's down in a valley.
Hmm.
Maybe tourists are more familiar with it as a possible site of Emmaus in the
Right.
Gospel of Luke. That's maybe the best candidate for Emmaus. But hundreds of years earlier, was this a place where people came and worshipped as an alternative to the temple in Jerusalem? And if so, that was, of course, condemned by the writers of the Bible, who said, you should only worship the Lord at his temple, at his altar in Jerusalem. But as we know from like when kings like Jehoshaphat and especially then Hezekiah,
Hmm.
Josiah, they were known as reforming kings because they would destroy the shrines and tear down the high places and the standing stones and these items that were leading people away from worshiping the Lord.
Okay. Number 3. And looks like we're back in Jerusalem. This, I guess, we could call it a pretty recent excavation of Herodian pavement, actually, that goes from the southwest corner of the temple down to the pool of Siloam. But here we have some stone weights that were found, I think, recently. And this is quite amazing because, again, this puts us back in the days of Jesus.
That's right. This is from the first century. And this street here where they found this, that's sometimes called the Siloam Street or
Hmm.
the Pilgrim Street, or it's like the gift that keeps giving because it seems like almost every year there's another discovery, and a number of these make my top 10 list because they are from Jerusalem and
Hmm.
from the time of the New Testament. So that's kind of lining up right with our interest. But what's different here is we have evidence of a market. So this table you're seeing here that was used for measurements, for even as a standard for how much a vessel could hold. This could determine that this vessel held a certain quantity of olive oil or wine or something, so that could be used for transactions. They also found a lot of stone weights here. So you can see one of these here, and you can see the writing there, the inscription. So it,
Yeah, right there.
it recorded how much it weighed. And so what the archaeologists believe, and usually too, it's the big stories aren't just, oh, they found some stones or whatever, but it's what is the story. And the story here is that this is believed to have been a market. So along that street, as you're going from the Pool of Siloam, of course, famous where Jesus sent the blind man to receive his sight. But as you're going from that pool up the street, there's a market here. And so on both sides of the street, they have evidence of markets and including these weights that are going to be used for the transactions.
How big do you think this weight is? I can see the measurement down below there. Wow. Is that centimeters, you think?
Yeah, you can see they're about 4 centimeters or so, less than an inch or so.
Remarkable. So no doubt found with a careful eye by someone maybe sifting through some of these areas very, very carefully. Wow. So I've not seen this Herodian street, by the way. I don't know if you have. I know this past year no one was really allowed in Israel, as the case is now. But I am just dying to see the street itself, and yet to learn about all these new discoveries somewhere along this street. That's quite remarkable. So
yeah, when I was living there near Jerusalem, the archaeologists invited us to come bring our students out and volunteer for some days, and they initially we were working with the Pool of Siloam, and that's the beginning of the story. Was they discovered steps that became the Pool of Siloam, and then they just kept digging, and they found pavement, and then just kept digging, and so that's all underground. This is a very unique excavation in Israel because it's a tunnel underneath houses of the people above, and it's not a small one. It goes hundreds of yards up the hill to the temple, and it's fantastic. It's going to be a premier tourist site when they finish.
Right. I've walked through the drainage channel, of course, every trip that I lead underneath that street, but I've only seen just a few bits and pieces, areas of that street above. But that brings us to number 2. So we're back in the Old Testament day. These royal seal impressions, lamellic jar handles. This must have been a very surprising discovery as well. I believe this is right near the U.S. Embassy, is it not? Where they found
is, which makes it's south of the old city by a couple miles.
Yep.
And not too far from Ramat Rahel, which is another place that was about the same time here. Hezekiah Manasseh served as an administrative center. So what we have is probably the city of Jerusalem was large. There was a lot of people there, and they needed for expansion or whatever. So they built in the vicinity, kind of like today with the U.S. Embassy. They're not can't put it in downtown or whatever. That's all full, but further on the outskirts. And the fact that they found these royal seal impressions, as you mentioned, lamellic, so these are royal.
Here's one jar handle here, right?
Exactly, for the king. And they found several thousand of these in the last 150 years. So we know lots and lots about them, and massive studies have been done about them. I mean, one scholar in particular, George Grena, who you probably know is an expert on these, and they've classified them, and so there's different theories, but it certainly is used for this. These seal impressions are part of store jars, so they're collecting commodities, or grain, or oil, or wine, and these different seals, they have some meaning, and there's different theories of these place names that seem to be mentioned, like Hebron and Soko, and so they're being collected. They're being maybe sent for taxes, or maybe tithes even. It's been suggested to the Lord. And this is going on before the time of the Assyrian invasion by Sennacherib, and then even after that, it continued.
So we have some figurines here. looks to me like an Asherah head. Is that correct?
Right. We have so these Judean pillared figurines that we see
Yeah.
all over the place, and they
Yeah.
found them here too. And again, that's another thing that helps to lock in the date
Yep.
because these are so common. Also, animal figurines and horse figurines.
Right down here. Hmm.
Yeah. So they were just prolific. Now the question then is, what were they used for? So some people kind of make everything religious, and maybe they were certainly very religious people. A lot of times, as the prophets would say, uh, turn the wrong direction. But it could be that, or there's different theories about it, but they are very very common.
And here's one more aerial shot of the clean picture, if you will, of the excavation without the canopies in the shade over top. So drum roll, please. This brings us to number one, and I think Todd, it was a great choice. Of course, I've seen other lists as well, and it ranks up there also. But here it is. Take it away, man. This is unbelievable what they found here. These royal capitals again in Jerusalem.
Yeah, this was so good. The day it was discovered, I stopped class. I'm
Oh
teaching
wow!
I'm teaching some other subject, and I say, guys, we're just going to set that aside and just I talked to them about it for 5 or so minutes or whatever, because this is a very special find. They have found these capitals before, so that's it's not can't say they're unique, but these are near Jerusalem, just on the south side of Jerusalem near a promenade there,
Hmm.
and these are so well preserved. They found three of them together, and here's what they are: they're capitals that belong to a royal building, probably some kind of palace. This is the best architecture. This is the supreme examples that we found. Now I said we found about 30 of these. So we found them at the royal site up north in Samaria, also Megiddo,
Hmm.
Hatzor. They found a few. They found one in Jerusalem, but now you add to that these three more. Some at Ramat Rahel. I think about 10 of them down at Ramat Rahel. But it means there was some kind of palace. Maybe to the king. Was it Manasseh or was it Josiah, or whatever, who escaped away from the hustle and bustle of the city and got out here to his villa where he had a beautiful view of the area. You can see a little bit behind there of that beautiful view. So there's a lot of questions, partly too because they found these capitals, but the building that they belonged to was destroyed. So was that Nebuchadnezzar who destroyed that? That's a possibility. But look at the preservation. I mean, and also they say too. So the building was destroyed. These capitals were hidden away. They were intentionally buried. The archaeologists found, and that's why they're preserved, and the rest of the building was not.
And I think I saw a video, Todd, of they were discovering this one on top, and all of a sudden, they realized that there was another capital below this. Right? So
Right.
they got two for the price of one.
Right. And that was a fun moment because they captured it on video. I saw that too, where they're just, they're so excited they found one, and then and just the elation. And
Right.
guy too, as you know, John, from your work on the excavations, a lot of archaeology is tedious, right? It's boring. You're finding dirt and you're finding potsherds, and so discover something like that, and then to pull it up and to find one underneath it. I mean, that was definitely their highlight of the year.
And of course, it resembles. I should say the 5 shekel coin resembles the royal capital there behind. Wow, amazing. Now, this was found near the promenade, the walkway that goes south over to really towards the UN area. Do you know specifically where? I'm just trying to picture it myself. Somewhere near the promenade, right?
Yeah, that's what they said, and
Yeah,
I think that too was done as part of a salvage dig
could
and
be.
not necessarily preserved. They have more. There are more discoveries that they found in relation to that they haven't announced yet. They kind of jumped the gun. I mean, they intentionally were so excited that they wanted to get the word out about these capitals, but they said, hey, we got some more discoveries. We're going to study them some more. We're going to announce those in the months or years ahead.
Wow. Well, there they are. There are at least two of them here, and what a incredible find. Todd, I want to thank you so much for taking time with us, and of course, those who tune into our teaching channel. And I always tell people we're all about teaching the Bible in context, and certainly that involves paying attention to the top archaeological discoveries. And you have just nailed it, as you always do, my friend, in terms of this list that I think is just so perfect. And let me just tell you also, those who are watching, Todd, in his website, BiblePlaces.com, I believe that Dr. Bolen has the very, very best collection of high quality photos from the biblical world. In fact, I think you have how many volumes now? Is it about 18 volumes of pictures?
Yeah, after I went to Iran and then did some more Western Mediterranean, that collection expanded to 20 volumes now. So
20. Wow. So hop on BiblePlaces.com, and certainly you would benefit. There's all kinds of great resources if you're looking for really pictures that connect us not only to sites in Israel, but many other biblical lands, correct?
we try to cover as much as we can. So
Yeah.
to have a library of pictures that are easy and quick to use.
Well, I see your pictures all over, and what a blessing. Really, you are a blessing to the biblical community and what you offer, not only through your teaching, but certainly through these pictorial resources. So, anyway, thanks so much, Todd. It's been a delight to spend some time with you as we talk about the top 10 archaeological discoveries of the year 2020. We look forward to your next list at the end of this year, I should say. And again, blessings upon you as you continue to serve through your teaching ministry.
Thank you, John. It's been fun.